Welcome to the Studio Drummer Chats. This is a creativity podcast that is about all things creative. Drumming, music production. If you're a musician, you'll get some good stuff out of the things that we're talking about. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, a lot of the things that we talk about apply to all different creative disciplines. My name is Jonathan Cazenave, and I'm known on the web as the Studio Drummer. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to practice. And again, these things are useful and will help you achieve just about anything in life. It's not just specific to drumming, although I use these on a daily basis as a method to get better at playing the drums, but I also use these tips for a lot of other things as well. I did a video that covered 4 of these on YouTube, just recently released. My YouTube channel is The Studio Drummer. Please go check it out and subscribe. Again, you'll find lots of interesting things that are not just necessarily related to drums, but I hope you'll check that out. It's The Studio Drummer on YouTube. Today in the podcast, though, I'm going to go into those 4 things that I talked about a little more deeply and maybe even add some more things onto that. The first tip that I discussed in that video, and the first tip that I'm going to discuss today, is to set an alarm to remind you to do whatever it is you're trying to do. With smartphone technology, we all have awesome reminders, alarm, scheduling, calendars in our pocket. So there's kind of no excuse for not having an alarm go off to remind you to do the things that you need to do. For me, very busy life, and the way my brain works, I really need alarms because I need a daily reminder to do things. It helps me a lot. And, after a couple of weeks of an alarm going off at a certain time, you start to develop new and good habits, and you start to think of it. At 4 o'clock, I'm going to do this. But it takes some time to get there. It may take a month or 2 months, or, depending on how you're wired. But just simply setting a daily alarm, keep in mind that if you aren't able to respond to that alarm, in other words, if it says that you need to do this at this time and you aren't able to do it, and then the next day you don't do it, and the third day you put it off, you're probably going to get to the point where you're kind of ignoring the alarm. It'll come up and you'll just hit the dismiss button and move on. So don't get caught up into that. If that happens a couple of times in a row, you may need to stop and check the time that it's going off and make sure that you've scheduled it at a time that works for you. And that's a big part of setting the alarm, is sitting down and actually thinking about, okay, I work during these hours. I spend time with my family during these hours. I'm eating dinner during this time. It forces you to sit down and look at the time that you have allotted to think about when you can actually work on those things that you need to work on. And remember, these baby steps, they can be huge. So if you're able to only put aside 10 minutes a day to work on something or half an hour a day, don't beat yourself up about it. Just do it. The more that you do it, the easier it will become, and the more important something becomes to you, the more time you will be able to make for it in your life. I'm reminded of, this is an extreme example, but when I was taking piano lessons as an adult, I've taken piano lessons several times throughout my life. I was working a full-time job and would go to piano lessons after work. So sometimes the only time that I could really cram in practicing was during my lunch hour. So I bought a cheap keyboard with full-size keys, like maybe a 41 key or something kind of small that I could stick under the seat of my car, and something I wouldn't be too upset if it got damaged or stolen off eBay. And during my lunch hour, I'd go out to my car and put my music on my steering wheel and put my piano in my lap and scoot the seat back in the car and practice while I was eating lunch. So if you're determined to do something, you can find the time to do it. I teach and I talk to a lot of students on a daily basis, and We all do this. We all make excuses for, oh, I was busy and I had this and things are so crazy. And sometimes that really is just the truth. Sometimes there just aren't enough hours in the day to get something done, but you got to be honest with yourself. Number 2, have something specific to practice. So this is really important. And, there's nothing wrong with, I hear a lot of people sort of criticizing the idea of just sitting down and jamming for an hour. And then, you do that every day. And then you come back and you're not actually practicing because you're just like shredding for an hour. Well, guess what? If you're shredding for an hour, you're building your chops, you're working on creativity, you're doing lots of good things. So there's nothing wrong with just having fun and jamming. But if you have a specific idea in mind of what it is you're working on, it will help you achieve your goals a little more easily. Now, let's say that your goal is to be a better improviser. Well, if you sit down with a click or sit down with a piece of music or sit down with nothing and start shredding and you're making up new parts and improvising and you're consciously aware that you're doing that, that's the key, then you're practicing. So you have to be realistic about what it is that you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to achieve a faster, cleaner single stroke roll, then you need to come at it from a different angle. You need to say, I am going to work on my single stroke roll for 10 minutes at this BPM. I'm going to step up from this BPM to this BPM, and I'm going to set a goal, which is coming up next on number 3, but it's part of this. They're kind of joined together. I'm going to set a goal of achieving this BPM by this date. The same thing can apply to having something specific to practice. You're working out of a book. So I'm going to try to, I'm working out of this book, or I'm working on learning this song, or I'm working on learning this set of songs. Also, having something specific to practice really helps you focus when you sit down. So the idea, the truth of the criticism that I was saying earlier about sitting down and just shredding for a half an hour is that while there's nothing wrong with that, you may or may not be achieving what you really need to achieve. So if your goal in the back of your mind is, man, I would really like to learn, 20 blues songs so that I get a better sense of the vocabulary, so that there's this group of guys down on the corner and they have this open mic, and I would really love to just be able to go in and sit in with them one night. But I feel like to get to that point, like I've got to learn some vocabulary. I've got to learn more blues songs. I don't really feel like my shuffle's, really happening or whatever. And you're sitting down and you're shredding your chops every day. It's probably not going to help you get to that point where you're killing the blues. So that's the criticism there about when people say, make sure you're not just sitting down having fun every day. Actually, do sit down and have fun every day. If you have time to do that and set goals, those are both good. But back to what I said earlier about having something specific and being aware. Just be aware of what it is you're working on. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll take like a particular style of music, like let's just say it's chill hop, or some sort of chill hip hop kind of stuff, and I'll stream that for half an hour and I'm playing along with it. Well, it's fun, but what I'm working on specifically is I'm working on metronomic timing, because all of that stuff is, 98% of it is done to a grid. I'm working on my right foot. And these are things I'm thinking about as I'm playing. I'm working on groove. I'm kind of into trappish vibe right now, so I'm throwing in trap stuff on top of that. I'm making up some of my own trap stuff, which means that for me, that I'm kind of incorporating a lot more left hand stuff on the hi-hat, or double hand stuff on the hi-hat. A lot of triplet against 4 or whatever. So all these things, while I'm just, having fun, just playing, sometimes I'm just grooving, all these things I'm mentally working on as I play. Now that is in combination with having goals, which is number 3. So having goals also ties in with the idea of keeping a log or making notes. So these two go hand in hand for me, because the keeping notes part says, okay, for me, it says, today I worked on the double stroke roll at this speed, and I tried to do it for 2 minutes and it went pretty well. Or today I worked on the paradiddle at this speed and it didn't go so well. I think I need to slow it down next time. The idea is that, you are setting a goal, you're making notes about that goal. And, you remember there are different kinds of goals. There's kind of a short term, like I'd like to be able to bump this up by 2 or 3 BPM by next week. I'd like to be able to bump this up by 10 BPM by next month. But my ultimate goal is to reach this BPM. Now I'm talking, about speed here. It's of course not all about speed, but you get my point. It could be something such as I would like to be able to record myself playing with a song and listen back to it and have it feel good, so that when I listen back to myself playing along with this song, my drums match the song. It feels good. It sounds good. And I think I can achieve that in a couple of months. First, I need to kind of learn the song, and then I need to work on my recording a little bit, and then I need to do this and do this. So keeping a log, the log can be really fast and simple. Today I worked on this, went great. Today I worked on this, struggled with it, so need to slow it down. For me, again, back to what I was saying about needing an alarm. I don't know about you guys, but again, I have a lot going on. So when I come back to practicing, I don't remember what I did 2 days ago. I might, but if I see the notes, there it is. Okay, this BPM, yes. Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to pick up where I left off. And then, of course, setting the goals. You might have that at the top of your notes on your phone. My goal for you might break it down into subcategories. Back to having something specific to practice. You might do 5 minutes on the single stroke, 5 minutes on groove, 5 minutes on fills, whatever. Okay, number 4. Make your practice time as easy as possible by having all of your stuff in one place. So it doesn't matter the instrument, guitar, bass, drums, whatever. If you're sitting down to practice your guitar and you sit down, you're all ready, you set your alarm, and you've got a half an hour of just straight practice time, and you're like, where's my pick? Oh man, you spend 3 minutes looking for your pick. And then you say, okay, all right, let me boot up my computer here so I can pull up this, this tab that I'm working on. 3 minutes to boot up, search for the tab, another 2 minutes, pull up the tab, get it up on the screen. Okay, you're 6 minutes in now. Ignore my math there. So you get my point. Oh, wait a minute, I'm out of tune. Oh man, where is the tuner? I'll just use my phone. Oh, I deleted that app. 10 minutes in now. You're 10 minutes into your 30-minute practice session. So as much as possible, be conscious of, have all of your stuff in one place. Have extra picks. Have an extra tuner. Have a snark stuck to your guitar. Have your sticks. Have your earbuds, your headphones, all that stuff ready to go. I'm real big on this. I'm real big on efficiency of time as much as possible. My studio, and I've done this for years, like everything in my studio, except for the monitors, the visual monitors and the audio monitors, the audio monitors automatically shut off and the visual monitors have a switch to shut them off. But I leave everything in my studio on 24/7. And here's why. I write as well. I create stuff. And there's nothing worse than having an idea and having to boot up your computer and pull up your DAW and get a channel set and blah, blah, blah. And then the idea is gone. Now, of course, you can mitigate this by singing your idea into your iPhone. And I do that a lot too. But when it comes to writing and those sorts of things, my piano, my Roland stays on 24/7. So I can sit down and play. So I've worked out a system for me, and that works really well for me. And I just want to make you aware that these little time kills, I'm not even going to get into social media, but these little time kills, distractions, that should be number 5. I'm just going to throw that in there. Get rid of the distractions. So, when you're practicing, try to set up an environment that says, don't bother me during these hours, so you put your phone in airplane mode. In my studio, I have a recording light. So I hit a button and it is wirelessly connected to a switch that I bought at Lowe's or Home Depot for $30. And it's a cool little device, and it turns a light on and it lets everybody know I'm recording. So you may not have the luxury of having a recording studio, but you let people in your life know, hey, when I'm in my practice corner, I'm gonna try to be really super focused for half an hour. So if you have anything short of the house burning down, if you could just wait until after I'm done, it would really be helpful. So just be aware that, it's easy to get distracted. And sometimes if you're working on something that's difficult or challenging, you want to get distracted because you don't want to deal with the thing in front of you. So, my next thing to think about, and my next tip that goes a little deeper than the video, would be sure that you have something at the end of your practice session that is fun. So if that is shredding for a half an hour or shredding for 10 minutes out of your half hour, have it, or 5 minutes, or if you have an hour, whatever. Have something fun. It might be playing a song. Make that your reward. So if you're practicing scales for your first 15 minutes and then you're working on your sight reading for your next 10 minutes, make that last 5 minutes something that you really enjoy doing, something that's really fun. And sometimes I start with something fun. End with something fun. Find a formula that works for you, but make sure it's not all drudgery. For me, even when I'm working on something hard and getting frustrated, it's still a great day. There's not a bad day when you're playing your instrument. The practicing part, yes, it can be challenging. Yes, it can be tedious. But for me, I love music so much and love playing so much. I don't think of it that way. But I can relate to the fact that when you're trying to do something hard, I have goals. In and out of the music world, but specific to playing an instrument that are, man, they're really tall mountains for me to climb. And so I just keep working at them. I'm not even sure if I can reach them, but part of the big part of the fun is trying. It's the old saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And there's a lot of truth to that. Keep in mind that a lot of what we're talking about here is in your head. It's psychological. So above all, be sure that if you miss one of these steps, or if you fail on one of these steps, or if you forget to take notes one day, or if you miss a day of practice, don't beat yourself up about it. Just start over the next day. That is one of the biggest things that we have to battle, because sometimes we're like, well, this isn't working out. I'm just going to forget it. So above all, keep going. By having something fun, by having an inquisitive mind, by looking at it as something that's going to enrich you as a person, you've got to find some enjoyment in there. Because if you don't really like playing, or you don't really like, I know that sounds crazy. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably like playing. But if you don't really enjoy that part of it, everybody wants the icing first, of course. We just want to play the songs. We want to sit down and just have fun playing the songs. Whatever that means to you. It might mean interacting with other people or being in a band or whatever, but that's where we want to be. I'm the same way. I want to be a master now. But we have to realize that it takes a little bit of discipline. And one big step towards finding that little bit of discipline is developing good habits. And these things that I've mentioned will help you develop good habits. So setting an alarm, having something specific to practice, keep notes and set goals, and make it as easy as possible for you. Have all of your stuff in one place. Have it there. Buy a duplicate of picks and duplicate of tuners so it doesn't move. And that way, when you sit down, you're not losing time by having to find this and do that for your practice time. I hope that these tips help you get better. I hope that you can apply them. If so, please let me know. I can be reached a couple different ways. You can email me at jc@jkazmusic.com. I am the Studio Drummer on Instagram, the Studio Drummer on YouTube. You can find the Studio Drummer on Twitter. And I can be found all over the web. jkazmusic.com, jkazmusic.com. And I hope you will subscribe to this podcast. I'm going to be doing these on a regular basis and covering all kinds of fun stuff. I look forward to talking to you soon.